everybody, this is Carissa with Inky Fairy Designs, and I'm back with another fun Brutus Monroe project today. And do you love mermaids? Because I sure do. And when I saw the stamps in the June inspiration kit, I couldn't wait to stamp them up and color them. I am going to show you how I color some texture into the fin or the tail of the mermaid, as well as how I color kind of a fun ombre hairstyle on this mermaid. So for the tail, I'm going to be using these colors on the left hand side of the screen: BG32, BG45, BG49, and B99. And I always color light to dark with my Copic markers. That's generally how I tend to color with any medium that I'm using, but yeah, with Copics I always have colored this way, and I like to be able to build up that layering and that color and shading slowly. So I start by just swiping that lightest color all over the tail and a little bit on the tip of the fins. I'm going to be using a stippling technique to create the fin texture in her tail, and all that means is that I'm using the very tip of my marker and creating different size dots on the tail, and my dots are larger towards the darker area that I want on the tail, and then I fade them out lighter, or not lighter but smaller in diameter, towards the lighter area of the tail. And I will continue this with all of the colors all the way to my darkest shadow color. And I will be very light on this one. I won't use as much of this dark blue as I do the other colors. I just liked the way that it gave a little bit more dimension to the tail, so that's why I brought in this B99. It's fun to experiment with different color combinations with your markers, and you can really get some unique looks, and that's what I'm going to show you today. You can see that I have already colored the skin and the other small elements on this mermaid. I didn't really want to focus too much on the entire coloring of this stamp. I thought it would be nice, and I could slow the coloring down just a tad for you, to show you just two areas of the mermaid that kind of are the highlight of the mermaid anyway. Adding texture to the tail is always a super fun thing to do. And then I love adding fun colors to hair, whether it's a mermaid or just any stamped image. I love to color fun color hair, and so that's what I'm going to show you today. So on the tip of the tail, the little fins, I use a different technique because I don't feel like that area has so much of the mermaid scale texture. I kept it very smooth using the flicky motion that I will show you again in her hair. So now that I've finished going through all of the layers and the dimension on her tail, I'm just smoothing it all down with that lightest color, very light wash of that color over top, just to kind of smooth and blend everything in. But I think you can see how fun that texture is on the tail just by using those different size dots and creating that dimension. Okay, so for the hair, I've got some colors here on the left hand side again. BV31 is going to be my lightest. BV11 is going to be my darkest of this blue-violet color that we're using. N3 is going to be my darkest, my shadow. I'm actually going to pull in N5. And then V01 and RV02 are going to be the little pink shade that we create this kind of ombre or dual tone colored hair, because I think mermaids need to have that fun hair. They're magical creatures, and so they need to have some magical hair to go along with it. So I'm starting with that BV31, and I am just adding a touch of that color to the roots of her hair and then pulling it down slightly. And I'm going to do that with each section on the top of the hair. So I'm going to have the purple on the top and the pink coming up from the bottom, and then I'll pull in some of that, and you want to go around the little sea stars and different areas that would have that shadow on the image. Here's where I tried the N3, and it's always a bit of a experiment when I'm coloring. I don't really keep track of color combinations that I use or love. So every time I pick up my markers, it's a new experience. So here I am. I'm going to look for a darker color, and 5 is what I'm going to switch that out with. That is a little bit deeper. I'm going to get some more depth, and you can see it right away how it just adds a little bit more dimension to her hair. And I chose the N grays because it's a neutral, and it would blend with both the blue violets that I'm using as well as the pink red violets that I'm using in her hair. So now on the other side, I am going to start coloring in that pink. So just starting from the tips of her hair and pulling that in. And I use a flicking motion. That is, I start with my marker, always using the very tip of my marker, and then I flick it up. So as I move up on the image, I'm lifting the marker ever so slightly so it gets lighter as I get towards the middle part of her hair. It's a technique that if you aren't familiar with or you haven't used, it takes a little bit of time to kind of get used to that motion that you use with your hands and with your markers to kind of flick that just ever so slightly off of the paper. But once you get used to it, it's really becomes second nature, and it's a really great technique for all of your coloring, but especially hair, since it really helps to give you that texture of the strands of hair. And you can see as I'm coloring, I'm kind of picking out, following the line art, because it has all of that beautiful kind of drawn strands of hair in the stamped image. I kind of pick a few of those to highlight and add some more shading along the edges of those. So as I go back through my colors and add more depth, add up that color, you'll see how I start to single out those little strands of hair and add a little bit more shading along those, and not just around the tip and like roots of her hair. So I'm coming back in with my lighter shade of pink, I believe here, and I'm pulling it more into the purple. So as I do this second layer, I'm overlapping the pinks and the purple to get that nice sort of gradient look in her hair. And this technique doesn't have to be used just with pink and purple or kind of pastel color hair that I'm using today. You can totally use this technique with bright, vibrant colors as well. And it's just a matter of layering them and blending them together. So here you can see I'm taking that blue violet 11 and I'm picking out those different strands of hair that I kind of want to accentuate and draw them out and give them that texture. And I think that just adds a lot of movement to the hair and makes it almost, you know, three-dimensional. We're working on coloring a flat two-dimensional object, and we can have some fun with our markers and our shading to create that dimension on it. So now I'm going to come in with the BB3 one, which is our lightest color, and I'm going to start to blend those again together. So I'm overlapping again the pinks and the purples with this color, and you can see how adding those little strands really adds some dimension to the hair. Coloring hair is just super fun to me, and these mermaids are fabulous for coloring. There's 3 different images in this set, lots of fun little accent images and accessories, and then or little fun friendly characters, and then some great sentiments in them. So now I'm coming in with that pink, and I'm going to give it a light wash all over just to give that some nice blending. And now she is done and so super cute. After I lifted her up, I realized I forgot that little bit of hair right behind her head. So I'm just taking the 2 darkest colors and adding a little bit of color there, and now she's done. To add a final little extra touch, I'm going to add some highlights with a white gel pen to her tail, and I just add a few dots on the tail to keep in with the, dimension and texture that we added there. And then for the fins, I just add a little bit of highlight there. And of course, mermaids have to have sparkly hair, right? So I'm taking a glitter pen and I'm just swiping that all over her hair, and I really love how this makes her hair nice and sparkly. It's pretty subtle, but you can see it a bit in the pictures and definitely in person. I'm going to go ahead and fussy cut her out after I add a few little bit more details to the stars, and then of course some highlights on her cheeks. Oh my gosh, I just love that face. Isn't it just so cute? Okay, so I fussy cut her out and I added some of this fun mermaid paper from the Mermaid Collection paper pad, and of course some mermaid sparkly paper underneath. All of that is mounted on the Brutus Monroe, I don't know, I think it's navy. It's the navy cardstock, but it's called something else. And do you see that sparkle? Isn't it beautiful? I love it. I just love the way that this card turned out. I hope you enjoyed kind of this like snapshot into how I color with Copic markers. All of these techniques can definitely be applied to any alcohol markers you might have in your craft room. And I cannot wait for all of you to get your hands on this June inspiration box with all of the cute mermaids. And definitely, if you start sharing on social media, hashtag Brutus Monroe, and create your own ending so that we can come around and take a look and see what you have made. Until the next video, guys. Bye.